not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. It's been a long time. It's been, I think, over a month, but nevertheless, we are back. We have a new studio as well, so any sound issues we are working on for sure. I did want to do a live stream. There's some sound pads that have gone up. There's going to be more eventually going up, so anybody who's noticed a bit of an echo, they've been correct about that, but it's diminishing for sure, and that's good. Also, we have a new feature, apparently. It's only been gone for a month, and the live chat is changing. We've overhauled our mod team for one. Got a lot of new mods, which is great. We love our new mods. They do a great job. Much better job than the old mods, in fact. And on top of it, we have a top fans feature, which is definitely going to kind of just, I assume, tell people who like comments the most on every stream. I don't know if that carries over for chat or whatever, but I guess at the end of the stream, we'll shout out the top few because that's just the way that it goes. So regardless, guys, we're going to be going and turning on the face cam when we get to 100 likes. We're only at 42. So I know that it's kind of a new stream. Everyone's, a lot of new people probably pouring in, don't get the protocol, don't remember the protocol because it's been so long. So like up the stream. Let's get to 100 likes. Some people in chat, I can read some of the messages, although if we hit our goal, which is the last thing we'll talk about, the 15 yellow super chats, $9.99 or above, although we'll take any super chat. We appreciate them, but we'll read regular chat for a few minutes at the end of the stream if we hit that goal. So if you guys want to help out, that's great. If not, if you want to send a question in you want answered, if it goes towards the goal or not, I say make sure that you guys send in a super chat as well, because it keeps the conversation going. But we do have a lot to talk about tonight, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions from people as well in the chat, because it's been a while. It has been a while, but I did want to, before we begin, and I know we're not at 100 yet, but I did want to tell you guys about our poll, because we did a video today talking about the state of approval polls, and the same polls that were wildly off in 2024, the same garbage online panels are flooding the zone, as they like to say, and in fact, what it's doing is it is causing the aggregate to be thrown off. Donald Trump is not down by 6 points on net. He might be down by a few points, but even then, there's a thing called summer response bias, and that could be skewing it. I'm not saying it is. Maybe it's the whole Epstein thing. And some supporters who are very invested are just tuning out. That doesn't mean they'll tune out forever. Again, like I said, I know a lot of people care about it. I would like to see the files myself, but it does tend to be a relatively online phenomenon more so than an IRL phenomenon. I'm not saying that these things can't mix, especially as a lot more people are that are political, especially in the younger generations, follow social media. So regardless, 74 likes. Let's get to 100 so we could put that face cam on. But in terms of the polls, we were the fourth most accurate pollster in the entire country in 2024. We were the most accurate pollster in the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which was not really beneficial to the conservative or Republican movement or whatever, but still, we call it like we see it. I mean, we underestimated Trump actually in many key places, and I'd rather have it be that way than, we overestimated him and he fell short. But regardless, we tried to do the best with the methodology. We have an accurate track record. We predicted Trump would win the popular vote by 1. He won it by a little bit more than that, but fourth most accurate pollster out of several hundreds in the national electorate is a pretty damn good title to hold, if you ask me. So if you guys would like to donate directly to the polling GoFundMe to make sure that we can conduct another poll, feel free. We have the link in the pinned chat. So again, that's for the entire, not just for me. That doesn't go to me. That goes to the public. That goes to you if you guys want the polling. So either way, we already have raised about 11% of our goal since that video dropped. So we've already come a long way for that. But if you guys want to help us reach the goal faster, feel free. Although if you guys just want to send in questions via Super Chat, although I will shout out the donors who donate to the GoFundMe during the stream as well. So that is true. But 92 likes, guys. Let's get to 100. Another thing that I did want to touch on before we get started is that the show has a title, the weekly wrap-up. We're going to be going live Sundays. I don't have all that free time anymore. I will say that, but I do want to cover the events. I do want to do a weekly show, weekly stream. It's going to be called the weekly wrap-up. Nobody does that, so that's what we're going with. That's what we're going to do, and it's exactly how it sounds. We're going to talk about the events, the relevant events throughout the week. Obviously, we're going to be dropping videos pretty much every day, but the Sunday show will be titled the weekly wrap-up, and this is the first weekly wrap-up. So when we hit 100 likes, we'll begin, but we'll be talking about the redistricting war. We'll be talking about Donald Trump possibly federalizing D.C. What in the world does that mean? Well, I'll explain it. And also Democrats versus deportations. They've gone delusional about what, quote-unquote, destroying somebody means because they've just lost touch with reality, and they still don't comprehend why they lost, which again, is going to bite them in the rear end, if not in 26, in 28. So regardless, they've got a big problem. I'm sure we could talk about later after the main segment some of the 2028 developments because Gavin Newsom is being a total diva clown, but that's to be expected when you have Gavin Newsom. So regardless, here we go. We're back. And I did want to cover this really briefly before we talk about redistricting because that's been a hot topic for the past month. And Texas Republicans are trying to grow a backbone, and it possibly could lead to even more polarized redistricting. Both sides will try, but Democrats, are they maxed out? Pretty much close to it. And we'll cover why that this is a win for the Republicans and the Republicans only. And why they're doing the right thing in Texas. It has nothing to do with any sort of, I guess you would say, just power grab, more so than understanding the lay of the land and understanding who is doing the real power grabs. It's not the Republicans. They're just trying to rectify it. So either way, Donald Trump's approval rating in the polls that were not wildly inaccurate and that did not wildly skew the aggregate in favor of Kamala Harris in 2024, he is doing fine, 47%. That is higher than pretty much any point during his first term. His disapproval rating is lower than any point during his first term, other than like the first week or so. So regardless, he's doing very well, and he's passed the lion's share of his agenda through Congress to boot, which is also huge. And then on top of that, the only trash polls are the ones that are showing him underwater by more than 10 points, what the solid polls are showing him underwater by. But you expect me to take them at face value? I don't really think so, because they all use one of two online panels that have been garbage since COVID. And we talked about this in the past video, but I did want to briefly say, if you guys want to donate to the GoFundMe, the link is in the pinned chat. And SoCal Strategies, the fourth most accurate poll in the nation, we will conduct an approval poll. And if we smash our goal, which again, we do it for pennies on the dollar of these other polling firms too, that produce garbage results and brag about their quality, which there is none, spoiler alert. But regardless, we will be doing a poll, and then maybe if we have enough that we've raised, we'll up the goal and then fundraise for a poll this November or October for November in New Jersey. I don't know about Virginia. Seems like you guys would rather have us poll New Jersey than Virginia anyways. That's the lay of the land right now. But still, this is a massive opportunity for people if they want to invest in a poll. We have delivered before, and we will deliver again, and to the best accuracy that we possibly can. So in terms of the redistricting war, because this is something that is on everybody's mind right now, in the state of Texas, they are redrawing the map in the state of Texas, or they're trying to redraw it. And this map would cause Republicans to gain about 5-6 seats compared to what they have now. Because currently in Texas, you have 38 districts, and it's a 26-12 advantage, I believe. And they want to make it a 30-8 advantage. So that would be like a net gain of several seats. In fact, I think it's actually, they have less of an advantage, I think 25-13. So they would be adding 5 seats. They would be shoring up the Rio Grande Valley. And on top of that, they would be adding a seat in the Dallas area. They would be adding a seat in the Houston area and getting rid of that god-awful I-35 district that is drawn from Austin to San Antonio. This map actually looks more compact and better, arguably, than the current map does, and it gives Republicans more seats. And that's something Democrats have mastered. In California, they have a quote-unquote independent commission. Spoiler alert, it is not independent whatsoever. And that's one example. Gavin Newsom is saying he wants to put on the ballot to get rid of it so they can draw out all the Republican seats in California to combat this in Texas. Well, here's the problem. Republicans also have Florida. They can add seats in Ohio. There's plenty of other red states, and we could talk about the antiquated provisions of the Voting Rights Act that basically say you must have a blue district in Louisiana, actually 2 of them. If you get rid of that, Republicans could draw out so many Democrats, they're not going to cede control of the House for a very long time. In fact, the upcoming census nets Republican states like 11 seats from Democrat states, and a lot of that is because the current census was done very poorly, and we saw that in 2020. It was a very poorly done census because of COVID, and the bureaucrats really dropped the ball. And now what are you seeing? You are seeing Republicans willing to mitigate that and plenty of other things. Like Illinois is a disgusting map. New York, Hochul lost in court. She had to draw an actually fair map. The initial map was disgusting. There was all this spaghetti all over the place. And then she had to draw an actual map, and then she went out of her way to draw a less gerrymandered but still gerrymandered map in the state of New York. So Democrats have been gerrymandering far more than Republicans have when you look at it. In fact, it's like Republicans win the House generic ballot by a few points, and they only end up with like a few seat majority. Like, you can tell something is off from that alone. Obviously, I say proportionality is not everything. I tell both sides that. Wisconsin's a fair map, and no, in a fair Massachusetts map, you're not going to have 3 to 4 Republican House seats, although their map is gerrymandered, because there should be several competitive seats, and they purposely will draw out those seats that should be there for seats that look like spaghetti, but they'll always go blue by more than 15 points, because Democrats understand power better than we do. They're the ones that always play the victim him over this stuff, but they do it the worst, the objective worst. And you can see that right here. I made this map, and I think we could debate it a little bit. In fact, I think Rhode Island's a Democrat gerrymander. I'm not saying Republicans would have a seat there, but they split Providence down the middle. You can tell what they're doing. And Alabama and Louisiana are on here because Democrats mandate seats in places that they shouldn't really have them. So again, Democrat states are the ones that do it more. In fact, they use the court, and you have so-called weak conservatives on the Supreme Court, even some Trump-appointed justices that are doing this, that are allowing this to happen, and it's ridiculous and it's nonsense, but it goes on. So Republicans are willing to finally grow a spine in Texas. I thought the Florida map, the current map, is good. They want to make it better. Trump is teaming up with his former Republican primary rival, Ron DeSantis, to make something happen in Florida. Ohio is very likely to redraw and also make a map that looks better. It's like Democrats have bad geography. That's the way it is. California, they don't even have the best geography either. They have bad geography everywhere. And if you look at an actually compact, and I think this map has a couple flaws. It does split Fresno a little bit too much. Bakersfield, maybe we could, talk about some of these districts here. There's some, more red competitive seats, but still, the current map gives Republicans 9 seats. Even if you want to take a few away here, make them competitive blue seats or whatever, if you think that they're unfair, Republicans should have at least 5 more seats in a fair, compact California map than they currently have under the so-called independent commission designated map, where they only have 9. Like, yes, proportionality is not everything, but in a state with that many districts, you start to ask questions when you're getting 40% of the vote, but you're getting in the mid to high teens in terms of the percentage of seats, even though you have a great year, relatively speaking, in the state of California for your party. So there's a lot of problems with these maps. Illinois itself is ridiculous, but the Democrats will hide behind these studies. They throw them out there like Pokemon cards if you get in an argument with them, and they'll use terms like nonpartisan, and it's from the Brennan Center. The Brennan Center and nonpartisan don't belong in the same book, let alone the same sentence. Everybody knows that. It's a foundation named after a very far left judge from a long time ago. And you have this guy who ran for Senate and then dropped out because they knew he probably couldn't win, so they had to dig up the corpse of Roy Cooper, who still probably is going to fall short, but it's going to be close. That's not the point. Main point is he promotes the study saying Republicans have a 16-seat gerrymandering advantage. 16 seats. So what he's saying is that Republicans win the generic ballot by 3, they should lose the House by 11 seats. That does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to you or anybody with a brain that you would have the map. Maybe you could say it's fair overall, or certain gerrymanders, cancel each other out. But this map is ridiculous. And I actually posted a tweet that explained how ridiculous this was. Because, again, we could talk about what I just said, but I know proportionality is not everything. So Wisconsin, Democrats have bad geography. The only way you're getting 4 blue seats, which you actually could get if you have a very solid year and you have better candidates, you could still pull it off in Wisconsin, realistically. I think they're going to make it 5-3. I think Van Orden might lose, but maybe he wins. He could still have a shot. I just think that he's pretty weak on his own. But regardless, that district could flip. The Brian Steele district, if you had a weaker Republican, could very well flip. Depending on the year. There's no stolen seat there unless you want to split Madison and Milwaukee, in which case you would be breaking the, fair map rules overall. Iowa, that's another one. There's no guarantee you could draw a Democrat seat even in the Des Moines area, but let's say you did and had a blue-leaning seat, the other seats would be non-competitive. Democrats, if they have a really good year, could technically win 3 out of those 4 seats. Which, again, I think that even they would believe that the map is somewhat fair. It's a deep red state now. Maybe you could make the case that Des Moines should have a more competitive district or whatever, but it's always been split down those freeways for anybody that has paid attention to Iowa politics over the years, and both sides have been comfortable with that. So that's ridiculous. Those 3 seats that just don't exist. that the Democrats should have. Indiana, there's no real evidence that they should have another seat. I mean, the Indiana suburbs are still relatively Republican leaning. Maybe you could draw a more competitive seat there, but it would probably be at the expense of Democrat areas in the Gary area seat, which is probably going to flip by the end of the decade as well. Like, I agree with Tennessee. Nashville is divided up. That is a biased map. And like I said, there's so many more Democrat biased maps. Utah, even then, Burgess Owens, when they had one of the fairest maps possible, won that district in 2020 in the Salt Lake City area. Now, they shored him up because they made an incumbent-friendly map, as a lot of states tend to do. But even so, it's like there's no guarantee that you would see that seat go blue anyways, to the point where I don't know how you could call that seat a seat that Republicans have that they're taking. And then you don't include anything in New York, nothing in Maryland, which Republicans should have at least one seat, if not two seats. Nothing in Connecticut. They don't talk about Rhode Island. They don't talk about any of these other states. They say 2 seats in Georgia. I don't know where they're getting that from. If anything, the Sanford Bishop seat should be drawn out because Democrats just happen to have bad geography there. And 5 seats in Texas, 5 seats in Florida. I mean, are the maps biased to the right in those states? Yes, but 5 seats? And then nothing in California? Really? Gets crickets on New York? Crickets on Maryland? But 10 seats? What 10 seats? Where are you getting those seats from? Where would you get them from? You want to draw a more compact map in DFW and Houston, and even if you do the compact map with Austin and San Antonio, that blue freeway district's going to be drawn out. It's going to be more Republican. So maybe 2 to 3 in Texas. Florida, even if you didn't split Jacksonville down the middle, there's no guarantee you get a blue seat there. I mean, you could draw a more compact map. I mean, you have Tampa in its own. You have Pinellas in its own. Florida's just a red-leaning state now. Maybe you say there's 2 seats Democrats could have there. Maybe a few in Texas. There's 1 or 2 in Nevada that are just going out the window because they strategically divided the Vegas area, which is a dummy mander, but again, they're just pulling this out of their rear end and trying to pass it off as proof when it doesn't make sense. And when it comes to Illinois, they'll acknowledge there's 3 seats that are being shortchanged from the Republicans. I think you could make the case it's more. I really do. I mean, the fact that this is a district there is completely ridiculous. It is. There shouldn't be 2 blue districts in Western Illinois. We know why they drew those seats strategically that way. And then some of the ones in the Chicagoland area, Republicans should have some representation. I think you could make the case Republicans are being shortchanged about 4 seats in Illinois. New Jersey's a train wreck as well. Connecticut, they don't mention. Republicans should have 1, if not 2 there. Massachusetts, they should at least have some competitive districts. I'm not asking for them to gerrymander like red districts to make it proportional, because those would also look ridiculous, and that's not how this is done. North Carolina, maybe you make the case. There's a couple, but the previous map did the opposite. They did the opposite, so you can't expect me to care. The bottom line is Democrats do it worse. Objectively, they lie. They play the victim in order to claim that Republicans are doing it. And if anything, Republicans are just trying to level the playing field. They're trying to level the playing field, and we're not even talking about the census because that would justify it enough. So they are coping hard about this because they understand the problem. Now, people are saying Newsom is going to try to redraw California. He can't. He'd have to put it on the ballot, and it probably could pass, but it doesn't poll very well. A lot of voters don't pay attention. They're Democrats are like, oh, gerrymandering is bad. We're not going to do that here. They'll vote in a way that'll protect Republican seats without knowing it, unless they really are in tune. And obviously, I think there's a good chance it could pass in California, but that would be in effect for 2028. And Republicans could do it even further in Florida, even further in certain places. Let the games begin. And then we get to the 2030s, and it's just all downhill for the Democrats from there. Republicans really need to seize the opportunity or they are going to be in a lot of trouble. And you have to set the narrative. If you can't set the narrative, you can't do it. Democrats, I feel like, are really playing in the short term right now, and it might work for them in 26 to an extent. I'm not saying that they're even guaranteed to take the House given this kind of stuff. They're going to whine about it a lot, but they have no direction. The party's still as unpopular as it's ever been. They don't know what the hell lies in their future. They don't, because they have a party that is fractured. They don't have a leader. Republicans, you have Vance. If he doesn't want to go, Rubio probably goes. If he doesn't want to go, you find somebody else. Maybe it's the Trump family member that you put another Trump on the ticket. Who knows? But regardless, they're going to have a better shot than any of these clowns. I don't see anybody on the Democrat side who scares me. There's a couple people I think that would be viable under the right circumstances. I don't need to name names. If you guys see my Democrat tier list video, I think I put one of them in S tier, but they'd have to go with generic focus on issues that actually matter and capitalize on like a bad economy. If there is one, which I'm not saying there will be, but like the fact that you have to have that as a pretense for why the Democrats could win in the current day should tell you something about how screwed they are as a party. That's not the bias kicking in here. They may do just fine in 26. 28 is not 26. A lot of people don't show up for midterm elections. I wish they would. We have to try. We have to make it happen. But come 2026, 2028, I mean, that's really when the dust will settle. They may win in 26. It might be beneficial if they do, if they flip a bunch of House seats, 20 seats. I don't think it's going to even be close to that. But let's say they do that. Let's say they flip 20 seats. They're going to ride, I don't want it to happen, but they're going to ride high into 28 saying, oh, Trump is over, the Republicans are screwed, and then they'll get just destroyed and decimated again, just like they did in 24, except it's going to be worse. They're going to have to come up with a lot of stuff to attack J.D. Vance on because he is not Donald Trump. Like they throw everything at Trump. How are they even going to find things to throw at Vance? If they keep trying to tie him to Trump about things like rhetoric, it's not even going to matter because like he's not Trump. The difference is Harris was Biden's VP and supported all the policy and said she couldn't find an area of disagreement. Trump's policy is a lot hard to tackle. If the country's doing well, they're not going to be able to, and that's what they decide to do. And we'll get to that in a second with deportations and the exchange that we're going to cover. But we have to, and by the way, guys, make sure you guys super chat. We're at 5 out of our 15 for the goal. But let's see. We have this federalization of DC topic as well. Wanted to get to that first because this is a big deal. And for those who don't know what this means, Trump is going to take control, National Guard of the nation's capital, make sure that it's cleaned up, make sure that he can make it beautiful, make sure the homeless get off the street. They have to go to certain places. Democrats have complained about this. They call them unhoused people. The hell does that mean? It's funny because homeless was one of their terms. Homeless was like the woke term because you could say bum, vagrant, hobo, all these words. They were like, no, that's offensive. You can't say that. You have to call them homeless. That's their term. Now their own term is not woke enough for them. You think they would learn something? You think they would learn anything from the fact that they're just wildly unpopular? They're wildly unpopular as a party. Wokeness is wildly unpopular. People don't like it. Some people put up with it, and they're the worst of all because the people that put up with it are the complicit people that could easily just stand up and make a difference, and then everybody would shut up. And we see that. I mean, we see that with more companies are doing it now. I think American Eagle comes to mind with them saying, like, no, we're going to talk about genes. It's not, mentioning genes, like with a G, like somebody having good genetics is not eugenics supporting. Like you can't cede ground to the craziest people in society. The more you do that, the more they take over. And that's how the left is taken over. And a lot of these weak people have ceded ground to the craziest people. Now they want to call them unhoused people, the homeless. Unhoused is the new term, which doesn't even make sense. And it's like, okay, It's not a good thing to be homeless. It's really not. Ask a homeless person. They will tell you. Some of these people may be down on their luck and genuine, and probably those people can go to a shelter, but you have a lot of people that are just like schizophrenic, deranged, drug addicts on the street. They hassle people, especially at night. And it's like a lot of the elites, a lot of these Democrats, they don't live by these people. They don't have to deal with it. Maybe if they go to work in like New York City in the morning, they might see a homeless person. But if they're like dealing with them at night in a city or even a suburb, because it's definitely poured over to a lot of suburbs, they don't have to deal with it. They're in their neighborhoods that look like the best that 1950s America had to offer. Security, they're living the American dream. The average American's not living the American dream. I'll tell you that much. And they have to deal with all the nonsense that the elite doesn't have to live around. They can pretend it doesn't exist. That's why they have the beliefs that they do. And they look down on people who decide to call out problems as they see them with immigration, with crime, with homelessness. And it's like they say Trump wants to put these people in concentration camps. I've seen that argument a few times. And it's like, what's wrong with housing the so-called unhoused homeless people? We're going to call them homeless people. We're not going to give in to their nonsense. But you call them this term, unhoused, and you're mad that Trump wants to house them. You understand it's not good to be homeless. You know, these people, if they're drug addicts, they need help. They do. I mean, if Trump says he wants to put these people in certain facilities, there's nothing wrong with those facilities. We shut down the mental asylums back in the day. That was a big mistake because now you have all this mental illness that's walking around, running all over the place, including running the Democrat Party, by the way. That's a whole nother argument. But Nixon with those asylums, he made a big mistake shutting them down. Trump has said he wanted to bring them back. I don't know if it's going to happen, but he does want to put the homeless in these places. And it's like the main problem with actual concentration camps is because they've been used to enact state-mandated murder. In this case, a facility that would house homeless people actually makes sure that they're less likely to die on the street. So these are stupid people on the left that are upset at every little thing Donald Trump does, and it's killing their party. It will kill their party as Donald Trump continues to post victories. It hasn't been all perfect, they say, and it's only been 6-7 months. So if they want to say, I told you so right now, they could have a lot of egg on their face in a few months, given the way that these things move. But even when you look at the economic data, native-born Americans are getting the jobs. Non-Americans are losing them. I have criticisms about, Trump could do a lot more with the H-1B program, dismantle it. These big tech corporations are really just losing the plot completely regarding labor, but we're not going to get into that entirely. Maybe in the super chats if you guys are asking about it. But Trump says we want our capital back. And it's true. You have a lot of crime in a lot of these places. And if you actually crack down on these people, do what Bukele has done in El Salvador, take them off the streets, you're going to have a much better place. And he said that the homeless will have places to stay, but the criminals don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. So he understands it. He gets it pretty well. So many people don't understand that this is actually popular. The Democrats might sensationalize it just like they do with deportations. But just like deportations, tough on crime policy is extraordinarily popular. And we know that. So the last thing we're going to cover is an exchange from Bill Maher and Dr. Phil, where you had an exchange about deportations. Because, and this is an account called Blue Georgia. I guess they're stuck in 2020. They didn't get the memo that Georgia did not go blue, but they still kept the name Blue Georgia. And the account claims that Bill Maher humiliated Dr. Phil, when I don't think that you could possibly have a brain watch this clip and come to that conclusion. But Bill Maher's a guy who is he's just a dumb center-left guy. I think the weed has fried his brain. He'll occasionally understand that the left is crazy, But when push comes to shove, he will side with them in some way, shape, or form. And when he does so, he loses all common sense. And it's honestly kind of hard to watch. So we're going to play this clip and we're going to analyze it, because this was a takedown from Dr. Phil, because Dr. Phil has been more openly speaking about his more conservative views lately. He spoke at a Trump rally. He interviewed Trump several times. He is going on ICE raids. So we'll play this clip.
Why are you going on these ICE raids? I don't understand that. You're a guy who we know for so many years who has been working to put families together, to bring families who are apart and heal them. And now you're going on raids with people who are literally separating families. Explain
now
that to
that's
me.
Bullshit.
That's not bullshit. They're not separating families?
No. If you...
And already, like, if that's the clip, the humiliation's been done. It was not Dr. Phil who was humiliated. It was Bill Maher who was humiliated, because it's true. It is BS, because you have the left. They will sensationalize these things. They will take a few cases where something might be the case, and they will apply it to all of these other cases where you have people in the country illegally, and they will say, no, these are all people that have been here for 45 years and have just never found the time to apply for a green card, which we know is BS. And Dr. Phil said it. We'll play the rest of the clip.
You arrest somebody that's a citizen that has committed a crime or is DUI with the child in the back seat, do you think they don't separate that family right then, right there?
But that's not what's going on.
Of course they do.
Of course,
but what you're talking about, I was hearing you in your monologue saying you've got these ICE agents with mask on.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you why they have their mask on. Because we actually have legislators who passed laws about immigration and funded those laws to be executed. They actually pay these agents to go out and do this, and now they're doxing them. They're putting their name,
yes, that's
their
wrong.
pictures, their addresses of their families on the internet. They're putting them on telephone poles. So, of course, they're wearing masks so they don't get outed, so people can do violence against their families. The negative actions against ICE agents are up 1,000% in the last several months. 130% violence against them. And why them? They didn't make the laws.
And they're enforcing the law. And this is the thing. The left has done this. They will talk out of both sides of their mouths. Before the election, Kamala Harris was trying to say that she was the real one who was tough on immigration. Nobody bought it. In fact, the issue caused her demise single-handedly. I think even more so than the economy or anything else. Immigration was that number one issue. And she would go out there and Democrats would say, no, she's going to deport the violent criminals. She's going to, do all these things. She'll do it. And of course, it never happened. And now when Trump wins and Trump starts to do it, oh no, he's the problem. We have to give blanket amnesty to everyone who's not like some criminal. And it's like, you have people who came into this country illegally. A lot of them are criminals. A lot of them, we don't know if they're criminals. These are not people that have been here for 30 years. These are mainly people that have come over. Half of them have come over in the past 5 years, and they have no business being in the country. You could talk about an incident of, somebody that's been here for 35 years and has never gotten a green card but doesn't know another country. I think that person's a moron if they've never really found a way, which there's been many ways where you could have found a way to apply for at least legal residency if you've been here for that long. Instead, they've decided not to do that, and they're, you can tell, just reaping the negative consequences of it. But in terms of families, if you have a problem, then you can get deported as a family. If you have a criminal that commits a crime, they get taken to prison. Their children are going to have to live without them. At least you can deport families together. Although you have many cases of so-called families crossing the border that get separated, that should be separated because they're not actually the families. These are human traffickers. And for those on the left who like to pretend to care about the Epstein stuff because they think that they can get a political victory over it, even though a lot of people don't care. The real problem with human trafficking and sex trafficking, it happens at the southern border, And Donald Trump and his DOJ have done a phenomenal job in that regard at tackling that very real, serious problem. But we'll play the rest of this clip here. We have 17 seconds, but I don't see any humiliation. I don't know who put this clip together. Is definitely lobotomized of some variation, but here we go.
They didn't make that law. What are you expecting to do? Just not do their job? If you don't like the law, change it. I don't like that law at all. Change the law.
If you don't like it, why are you going?
Because that is the law.
So he says, if you don't like it, why are you? I guess he's saying like he doesn't fully agree with like the total deportations of people that have been stopped for like a traffic ticket and they've been here 20 years or whatever. I could disagree with Dr. Phil on that, but he understands that it is the law and that if you have a lot of problems with these illegal aliens, you can't really make an omelet if you can't, crack an egg or two, basically. This is breakfast time, and we're serving up some deportations, and I'm glad we're serving up deportations, and we should be serving up a lot more, and it's important to make sure that you can have as much publicized deportations as you can, because every big publicized deportation, you're going to have 10 self-deportations because people don't want to be, having that on their record. They'll go home on their own. That's why job numbers have gone down over the past month, because they're from foreign-born citizens. And a lot of the native-born Americans, their numbers continue to go up. So you have over 1 million self-deportations since Trump's term. For the people that deny that, I say, what do you have to say about these jobs numbers that have been corroborated by several different firms that say these people just fell out of the workforce, that all the foreign-born workers just rage quit for one reason or another, and they're just still living in the country? And so many Republicans have the loser mentality as well because they don't understand Trump's win. Donald Trump is somebody who is very, very harsh in terms of rhetoric on immigration, more so than anybody else with his 2024 campaign, even more so than 2016. And on top of it, he won a record share of the Hispanic vote. So Republicans need to understand why. It wasn't just the economy. Because of those who were a part of the electorate, 49% of Hispanics said that they preferred Harris on immigration, whereas 47% preferred Trump. Now, Harris was campaigning on amnesty. Trump was campaigning on mass deportations. They both said they keep criminals out of the country or secure the border. One person actually meant it, the other did not. I'm sure you could figure out who did what. But in terms of the trust in immigration, of the 49% that trusted Harris, they backed Harris 93-2. The 47% that trusted Trump backed him 87-11. So there's more room to grow when you deal with mass deportations among Hispanic voters, not room to lose, because among Hispanic voters themselves, you had 11% of those who supported Trump over Harris on the issue still voted for Harris for other issues like the economy. So it's very clear that this was not an issue, that Hispanic voters just glossed over and then decided to vote for Donald Trump for another reason. No, Donald Trump won these voters because of immigration and his tough stance, because it affects their communities more than it affects anybody else. And the law needs to be followed. And I think a lot of people can see it, except the Democrats who continue to live in a fantasy land and want to weaponize the media as their propaganda tool, even though trust in media is at an all-time low, just against common sense. That's what they're trying to do. So it's ridiculous that we're still having this discussion. This is something Trump campaigned on. It was wildly popular among every single demographic, and he's enacting it, and people are mad that he's doing exactly what he said he would do. If anything, I'm not happy that the numbers could be a lot higher, although, like I said, these things take time. We want to see more deportations. We want to see, and now they're cracking down more on visa overstays, which is another really, really big part of the illegal immigration number as well. So they got to deal with that. But we're going to cover the super chats because we've done 40-some minutes of the live show already, and we have quite a bit of super chats to get to. So we will be getting to the super chats here. already. 5 out of the 15. If you guys want to help meet the goal, feel free to super chat. So Roku fan 1835 says South Park fell off a cliff. I agree. South Park itself, with the whole ice raid thing and the whole mocking Trump, there's several problems that I have. It's not that they're going after Trump. They've gone after Trump as Mr. Garrison. Mr. Garrison was always Donald Trump. Yes, they should have gone more after Biden and Harris. They never went after them at all. This whole both sides thing, they've not been on that in a very long time. I feel like after season 20, it went downhill. I've been a rare defender of season 20 because I actually watched it front to back and thought it was great because a lot of people didn't like the serialization aspect and whatever because it just, you couldn't tell the episodes apart. But yeah, I recommend saying don't watch it after that because it's just fallen off a cliff, as you said, and it's not funny anymore. It's not as funny. You can attack. I mean, some of the clips of the Cartman as Charlie Kirk were amusing. But the problem is this whole both sides thing. They don't do it anymore. They don't. It's not that they're making fun of Trump. It's that they're changing they're retconning their own show, and it's not funny. It's just not funny. It's like, oh, you're doing the Saddam Hussein thing again, except it's Trump this time. And it's like, whatever. It's not that big of a deal, but they have fallen off. I mean, they absolutely have. The way they're acting about it, it's clear what they're just trying to do. And it's like these same people came out and said, oh, we wouldn't go out there. We're not going to do Trump jokes anymore because they're dull. And they're right, because this guy's been in the public eye for 10 years in a political scene. If you're going to make fun of Trump for comedic purposes, make fun of Trump for comedic purposes, but you have to bring something new to the table or it's just going to be stale. This whole woke stuff is dying out for a reason. They don't understand that. They want to double down on a failing product and it's just not good. So, Grip Baits for 5, Tucson PaleoCon with another adult animation related question for 10 says thoughts on the new King of the Hill season. I give it a B, if not a B+. I thought it was enjoyable. It was nostalgic. It definitely hits different if you live in Texas versus not living in Texas. They put a lot of attention to detail in it. I thought the Khan voice was terrible. The fact they have to change voices for political correctness is a downside to the show. I thought that the show's characters themselves were fine. I thought Dale's kind of fallen off, and even with the old voice actor, it didn't sound the same. The character was a little bit forced. I like what they did with Bobby a lot. I think he carries the show. I think that there weren't really any. It wasn't really as woke as I think a lot of people expected. But the fact the Khan voice thing was irritating. It's like you got to change the voice actor because the voice actor is not the same ethnicity as the character, and then you decide to choose a voice actor who sounds like a white guy, and he's not even Laotian. He's Malaysian. So it's frustrating. He didn't do a very good job of it. It was not that solid. Not really a big fan of that. But I thought that a lot of the episodes were very enjoyable. So I think it's definitely, I'd say, worth a watch if you like the old series. I think that it's not perfect, but for compared to what South Park is doing, it's very solid. So. XJ Cherokee Bear says Beto has girly jeans. Security TV 4603 for 10 says Fox and others have reported Chinese Communist Party donating to the Spanberger campaign, but Sears is not running a good campaign. So frustrating. Youngkin was the best we had in 12 years. What's up with Virginia? That's a good question. Virginia is a lean blue state. It's a state that's not as Democrat as a lot of other states, but it takes a really strong Republican to win. And Youngkin was that strong Republican. I'd say down ballot, it's a little bit more Republican leaning. Sears is just kind of meh. I mean, she tried to lean into her identity on the early onset of her campaign, which was the wrong move. It's like you're not going to win elections campaigning on race and gender, especially as a Republican. And now she's trying to campaign on I'm going to continue Youngkin's tenure, which is what she should have done from the get-go. But it's like with this electorate, with Spanberger being a strong candidate, everyone knows she's corrupt, but Virginia's corrupt. So I think she's a great candidate for the swamp. I think she'll do phenomenal in Northern Virginia. I think she'll win. And I think she'll be a disaster as governor, but she'll only be there 4 years. And I think Youngkin could very well come back 4 years after that and take the governor's mansion back. So Gabriel N says, can you pull the popularity of the big, beautiful bill and trade deals? We can. I'm sure we could fit that in somewhere. I don't know how we would phrase the question, but Vanessa for 10 says, always great content. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate it. Digital Lee for 10 says, every time I see Dems bemoaning alleged GOP corruption, I always find the Dems engaging in corruption that is 10 times what the GOP did. Gerrymandering, budget waste, and corporate handouts are always DNC-led. Well, we're seeing that. And it's like Republicans have better geography than the Democrats. The Democrats don't get to play both games. Oh, Wisconsin's map isn't proportional. And then say, oh, no, we can't have a proportional map in California. Yeah, that's not how it works. It's really not. I mean, ideally you wouldn't have it at all, but if we're going to be playing this game, we'll beat you at this game. That's what I say. So BNHIK for 10 says Eastern DuPage County has a decent amount of GOP districts and the Illinois Dems cut it out of the 6th district. Exactly. We can look at that map and just understand how biased it is. Peter Seoth 1002 for 5 says, what chance do you give Dan's of beating Lindsey Graham, his most serious challenge yet, and would love to see it happen? Well, he had a serious challenger that these scumbags bullied out of the race because in like 2016, he was friends, even though he didn't have the same politics. He was a big Trump guy even back then, but he was friendly with Kamala Harris and took a picture with her and posted it and like had her hashtag or whatever. He never supported her for politics. He even said in the caption, yeah, I disagree, but whatever. He's like far more solid than Lindsey Graham. But you have these scumbags in the GOP establishment essentially bullying the guy out of the race. So now we're going to be left with a much, much weaker challenger, and we'll see what happens. I hope he does well. We'll cover all those primaries as we get closer, but it's like I think it's definitely going to be a lot harder now to beat Lindsey Graham when you have the strongest challenger that has been bullied out of the race by the GOP establishment swamp. Clown World says, can we deport Beto? He identifies as Mexican. Well, he's illegal citizen, although he's the type of person that would probably claim that he is, like, he'd go on like a rant standing on a table and he'd say that I am undocumented too. It's like, where the hell did that come from? But that's how these people, it's unhoused if you're homeless, if you're illegal, it's undocumented. They have their own language, but it's ridiculous. You don't have an undocumented pharmacist that's a drug dealer. You don't have I guess you would say every American is an undocumented citizen of another country by that logic. That's not how it works. World Politics Today for 5 says two questions. One, what city is the skyline behind you? Fort Worth, Texas. Number 2, why do you think Dems push Epstein stuff so much even though Clinton was involved? Because it's kind of like a hedging their bet sort of thing. We understand Bill Clinton was involved. We have enough intel just in the public eye that shows us that nothing's going to happen to him, and they're just trying to demoralize Trump's base. Trump came out and said it was a Democrat hoax, like Russia. At that point, I think a lot of people, including myself, were like, I don't think this guy understands like the messaging for this is not going to come off in a positive way. But enough time has passed where you can look at this and easily see what where he was coming from, because this is being weaponized. And there's so many people and agitators on the right, FAGA. You have MAGA and you have FAGA, FAGA, the fake ass grifting agitators who are assets. Whether they know it or not, they're assets for the opposition. They will gaslight ridiculous nonsense in an attempt to sabotage Donald Trump's popularity and base. And they did this before 2024, and they failed miserably. Now they're trying to do it before 2026. They're trying to tell people not to vote. They're trying to tell people to be disillusioned. And I tell people to do the opposite. And that's why they don't like me. So we understand that there are a lot of people out there in this grifting class, and they're doing it. I mean, this is indeed, in a way, it's being used to undermine Trump's presidency. The left is teaming up with all these other clowns in order to make waves in the political arena and just try to demoralize Donald Trump's base, make sure that they never partake in politics again so they can go back to their business as usual, even if it means having to use people that claim they're more MAGA than Trump to do it. That's what they will do. It's ridiculous, but I think we're on to their nonsense by now. American Nerd 76 says Mr. Garrison as Trump was funnier than South Park season 27. I mean, clearly, it's gone downhill. I mean, the show's been on for what, 20? I mean, you're talking about 30 years almost. And it's just not it. They needed to take the break. Because say what you will about every little tidbit of the new King of the Hill, it's solid. It's an objectively solid show. I'd say it's on par with some of the later, I would say better than some of the later seasons, like on par with like season 8. It's solid. It's not perfect. It's a different vibe. There's some elements of it that are irritating, like the convoys thing. I get it. I was the first to call that out. But South Park is just very hyper-political. Like King of the Hill, they'll try to do the both sides. They're actually doing the both sides thing. There was an episode where they targeted the crazy cultural appropriation people, which is kind of a little bit ironic given the whole con thing, and they did kind of poke fun at that. And then they also targeted like a fake Andrew Tate. No spoilers, but that episode irritated me, not because they were going after like that archetype, because Andrew Tate's a clown. He's a cartoon character. There's many reasons to go after him. I just think that Hank came off a little bit too preachy, feminist energy in that compared to his usual character. But it was not like a horrible episode like we're seeing out of like South Park, just completely. I think they're just trying to piss people off, but it's so contradictory. That's the irritating thing. It's not that they're mocking Trump. They're not being original when they're doing it. For one, they're literally rehashing a joke from 20 years ago, and they're not going after both sides. That was their shtick. You couldn't even tell what side the episodes were on because both sides would get targeted. Now one side's getting targeted. So, again, and they say, oh, you're offended by it. It's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Trump is still president with a record high approval, regardless of what nonsense that they put out. It's just not funny. It's not funny, and they're not going after both sides. So, Clown World 7763 says, will you be the RNC chair when Whatley joins the Senate? Well, I'm not, because they've got some other people lined up. I have mixed feelings about the whole what's his name, Gruters. I've heard some bad things about him, but a lot of those bad things are also from some not so good people, so I don't know. American Nerd 76 says, thoughts on the Trump-Putin summit happening within the week in Alaska. Any I assume you mean expectations, and will this mean the war will end? Well, no, Zelensky has an incentive, and it's kind of the same thing we're seeing in Israel, where Netanyahu doesn't want to stop because, he understands that he's got to stay in power, and Zelensky doesn't want to stop because wants to stay in power there. And Putin doesn't have to worry about that because, he's basically a dictator, and Zelensky is too, and pretends like he's not one, which is why he suspended elections in Ukraine. His approval rating's gone up, it's gone down. You have this, you look at the recent polls that they've conducted of Ukrainians, and it's like 24% support the war ongoing, and 60-some% accept or want a deal. So again, I understand the other side. You don't want to give your entire country away, but it's delusional to think that the borders are going to look the same as they did in 2014. Crimea is not going to be yours. Donbass is probably not going to be yours. A lot of those regions are concentrated among Russian individuals who speak Russian anyways. So it would make sense in some sort of deal. And in turn, you increase security measures. You add some sort of sanction. You got to find a way to end it. that is beneficial to both sides if you want to end the conflict. Whether you like Russia or not, you can't let the blind hatred of Russia just destroy your country in a war that, maybe you keep them at bay for a little bit, but is it really all that winnable without just wasting so many resources from all other Western countries? So Alaska's a good place for the summit. I think that Trump needs to make it clear that he's got to be tough on both sides, because you can't really trust Russia either. The other side will say that, and they're right. They're right that Putin is not somebody that should deserve blind trust either. And it's going to have to be a deal that works not just for Russia, not just for Ukraine, but also the United States. So Trump has been tougher on Putin lately, and then he's going to probably go back to being a little bit tougher on Zelensky, because that's how Trump makes deals. You're going to have to be tough on both sides in order to get something out of it. So American Nerd 76 says, why not have Youngkin run for the Senate in 26, as I can't think of any other Republican who could do decently in Virginia besides Youngkin. I think that it's just because he probably still would fall short and it would waste a lot of money, and I don't think he wants that on his record. If it was an open seat in a different environment, I think he'd be a lot more inclined to go for it. Real Texan Politics says 2026 is rhino hunting season in Texas. Replace Crenshaw with Steve Toth. That's a really good recruit to take him on, by the way. Gonzalez with Herrera, another recruit that was landed this weekend who ran last time and came super close. John Cornyn with Ken Paxton or Wesley Hunt. Yeah, that's definitely going to be something to target for sure. Ken Paxton with this scandal could be interesting. Will Wesley Hunt jump in? Well, it's definitely, I think, going to make it a lot harder for Paxton to get the Trump endorsement in the primary, but we'll see. It hasn't really shaken him in the primary polls or the betting odds, so maybe people are just willing to gloss it over. I really just don't know. The Base Cat with the member chat saying, what do you think about the past summer, Pride Month, and Summer of Love turned into FAFO season and Good Genes summer? The world is healing. Yeah, I mean, it's very annoying on social media. Sometimes you see these people where they are there, they're unhinged. They think everything is it's nonsensical, the way these people think. And they get worse and they deteriorate even more than they already were. So again, I think it's annoying in the short term, but it's really good for the Republicans in the long term. The problem I have more so is with the agitators that you have that are effectively assets for the left, whether they know it or not. They're assets for the anti-Trump right, and they will go out there and they will stir up nonsense to keep people demoralized. That's what they're trying to do. The left doesn't have people like this. They don't. But the right has people like this for one reason or another. And that's a whole nother thing we'll be dealing with. I'm sure you'll have a lot of people trying to tell people to stay home in 2026, all this sort of thing. It's only just beginning. The same people that probably haven't cast a ballot since 2020, if they even cast a ballot in 2020. That's a whole nother conversation. But Ray K3122 says if all states redraw their map, who would win? Republicans, clearly, because they have a lot more room to grow, because they have more states, and Democrats, like I said, do it more. American Nerd 1776 is crazy how the guy who made King of the Hill also made Beavis and Butthead as well as Office Space. Mike Judge is a legend. Yeah, I don't know where he really sits politically is another thing, because he went on Alex Jones's show like in 2014 too, after Alex Jones was already known for being really controversial. So I think he's more like libertarian type of guy. But the problem I think with the whole like show, I wouldn't say it's gone woke, but it's definitely has like a little bit of that element. It's like a little bit of an undertone. I think it's the other writers. The problem is how many writers do you have for these shows that are like, you know, I wouldn't even say conservative, but just anti-woke and wanting to keep that stuff out. There's some, but again, it's not just one man that dictates an entire product. But I would say I give it a B+. It was better than I think I expected. A lot of people expected. So wasn't bad. Clown World 7763 says if the current government in Ukraine is a CIA-backed government, is Putin taking down the deep state? It's an interesting question. I mean, there's too many moving parts for it, but I get what you're saying. Red Whale 18 for 10 We still need 9. We could lower the goal to 10, but we don't have that many people this hour because we haven't been streaming for that long. Or we haven't been streaming for a while is what I meant to say. We haven't done it in a month, but we're back. He says, do you believe Georgia's salvageable? Mostly talking about 2028 because I believe if JD wins Georgia by less than 2, it will drift away in the 2030s. Hopefully he wins by 3 or more. I think it depends on how well can Republicans do among like younger black voters, because Georgia's 30% black in terms of their electorate. It's in terms of the overall electorate, it's only like 50-some% white. They're going to run it up among the evangelicals, the working class whites in rural Georgia, the smaller metros, but like Atlanta, suburban Atlanta, there's a little bit of room to fall. The question is how much. There's a lot of age demography. For example, we understand a lot of the black electorate in the country are like, I'd say over half of it is black women over 50. They're voting 95% Democrat, but there's nuance to it because black men under 30 gave Donald Trump roughly 30% of their votes. So if that trend does continue for Republicans, maybe there's going to be some hope. It's just kind of like a give and take of certain demographics go certain directions, other demographics go in other directions. That's just how realignments work. So it's kind of just trading voters for voters. Republicans overall have been winning the realignment, so much so to the point where a popular vote victory doesn't even guarantee them a win, at least now. But Darth Chipmunk says, I support Trump and all. I don't like the fact that people have to meet ride Trump or MAGA in order to win primaries nowadays. Well, if you're talking about the like fake cartoonish people that will act a certain way in order to gain approval, I don't think that Trump really always goes for those people. I mean, if they're incumbents, he will. But if these are people like Josh Mandel in Ohio in 2022, he went with the more reserved guy with a never Trump history, and now he's his vice president. So I don't think, I mean, like, I get what you're saying. You have a lot of people that will not have any political positions. They don't build their own brand. That's detrimental, especially if you're running for governor. You're running for Senate, you have a little bit more leeway, so long as you don't overdo it, and you're better off focusing on the issues. But if you're running for governor of a state and you're just like Nancy Mace is going to try to go for South Carolina, and that's just, well, she has her own brand, but her own brand is so toxic. I don't even know if she's going to end up winning a primary when it's all said and done. And I honestly hope that she doesn't, because she's a nuisance, and she might lose to a Democrat if she's the nominee, because that's how governor's races work, or it's going to be way too close for comfort. So she's really got to rethink whatever she's doing. She's far better off running for re-election or just retiring from politics overall. I think that would be the ideal outcome for her, but she's too much of a diva to do that. She wants to run a state. She wants to probably run for president one day. God help us if that day came, but I don't believe it's going to. But she's been a mess for a while. She was a mess when she was anti-Trump, and she's a mess when she's pro-Trump. Like, you can tell that she doesn't have a lot of convictions other than I'm going to do whatever I think is popular at any given day. And we were so close in South Carolina in that primary to knocking her off, and we just barely missed it. So that was unfortunate, but you can't win them all. So it'll be the last call for Super Chats. We will end the show probably like 5 minutes or so because it is getting late. And we will be live next Sunday. And we're still going to be doing streams wherever there's an election on a Tuesday. Next year is going to be crazy with all the primaries that are going on. So don't go anywhere. We will be around for a while. I know it's been a little bit of a break from streaming, but it's good to be back. I would say it's good to be back. So we will see. But once again, guys, I must say that if you guys want to support the polling project, feel free to do so. We have our national poll. I got another $5 donation during the stream. So if you guys want to support it, the link is in the pin chat, because if you want accurate polling, which we have a track record, we're the gold standard poll in Wisconsin for one. I mean, especially after that Supreme Court race. But we're also very good nationally. We were the fourth most accurate national poll in 2024 out of hundreds of polls. It's our first cycle, only going up from here. So if you guys want to help us conduct a Trump approval poll, 2026 generic ballot, and if you guys have any other suggestions, feel free. Those who donate the most to the polling project themselves would have the most say. BRGRS 1337 for 20. I think that's the largest super chat of the night. His thoughts on the Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson feud. That's an interesting one. Tucker's been, first of all, Tucker Carlson lately, like, I respect a lot about what Tucker's been able to do for the Overton window over the years, what he did at Fox. He had a generational run. The guy's spending all of his time with Candace Owens, who is just talking. They're talking about the prime minister or president of France's wife, like, being a man. And I guess this is like the dollar store version of like the Big Mike meme, except at least that was funny and that was in America. How does this exactly help the movement? So that's a whole thing. But you have this, like, which I thought what Tucker was said about the Fuentes stuff was really funny about, oh, this like little gay kid from Chicago knows that my dad's in the CIA before me, which honestly, it's funny, but at the same time, I find it a little hard to believe. Like, I find it hard to believe that Tucker Carlson didn't know his dad when he's literally on tape last year saying that his dad was like involved with the CIA. Like, I know that his job was, Carrie Lake's job, and they communicate with certain intelligence positions, the Voice of America or whatever it's called. I don't really know the full extent of it, but Tucker now admits his dad's CIA. So I don't know what is true, what's not true about it. I mean, it's just, I haven't paid too much attention besides the one clip I saw, which is pretty funny on Tucker's part, but Tucker's probably concealing something, and I don't know why he's exactly going like down the road he's going down with this whole like Bridget McCrone thing. Like, does anyone care? Does anyone think, like, I put a question out on social media. I say, how does this advance our political movement by talking about some prime minister's wife without really any evidence, even if it's true? Like, what does this do to change anything? Is this going to change the world, talking about a prime minister's wife who I think was like his teacher or something? It's kind of strange. She's like much older than he was, but like her being like a man, which there's really no evidence, and Trump agrees that it's like, according to Candace Owens, he was saying, no, she looks like a woman to me, whatever. He like told her to cut it out. And now because she didn't, there's a lawsuit, which I don't think you should really be able, I don't like know if that's warranting an international lawsuit because one podcaster is going down some weird rabbit hole theory that they probably concocted on their own. But who knows? Sam Madsen says, why is Kim Reynolds so unpopular? Probably because she allows the Chinese to buy up the farmland after she said that she wouldn't. That would probably be my guess. Darth Chipmunk for 5 says, like, Susan Collins is awful, but primarying her is a terrible idea. It's handing the Dems a free Senate. Oh, I agree 100%. It's a waste of time and money. So, yeah, I mean, Susan Collins, I don't think she'll be primaried whatsoever. She might have a challenger that's a no-name that gets like 30% of the vote tops. But, yeah, we have to focus our energy on races that are going to benefit us. Collins is still a net benefit, even if she is a rhino, just because she's in Maine. We're not going to get a good senator in Maine. So we'll focus on Texas, Louisiana. There's a few more. South Carolina, South Dakota, possibly. American Nerd 76 says, I heard on Friday on a rap stream that Pam Bondi appointed Ed Martin as the special prosecutor for the Russia hoax/Spygate crap. Thoughts? I don't know if I really have any, but I do know that it kind of gets lost in the whole Epstein thing, but they did I mean, we already kind of knew this, but all the conspiracists were right about Hillary's health in 2016. They were right about the Russiagate being paid for by the Obama administration as an insurance policy. If Donald Trump went out there and won the election, they would use it to undermine his presidency. Honestly, I think the whole Epstein thing is too. Because if there was anything damning on Donald Trump in those files, it would be out. They would be out. Everybody knows it. Because they were willing to make up fake quotes. They were willing to take shots at Trump several times. You could, argue if that was, we understand that at least the first guy was most likely in coordination with someone in some country's department. We don't know which, but very likely ours. They say he was talking to Iran. I think it was more likely somebody that was on Capitol Hill. But it could have been a lot of different things. This is a strange situation. But regardless, of all the ways Trump could be taken out, you think that would be the easiest way. The whole base would split from him, or most of it would. If it came out he did some really highly illegal sex acts on an island that he's never been documented going to. But it never came out. Now, do I think that there's possibly no real clear list, or maybe there's a list of clients and we don't know who went where or what, and Trump might be on that list? Well, and yeah, but that's kind of already out there. Donald Trump knew Epstein. Oh, you're telling me for the first time, had no idea. Wealthy people in New York in the 1990s hanging out with each other. I mean, people hang out with people that fit their same designation. If you're a billionaire in New York, you probably know every other billionaire in New York, I would imagine. Unless you're some shut-in, but it's hard to really be a billionaire and a shut-in at the same time. So Red Whale 18 says we need to pick our battles for rhinos to primary. Some rhinos we can work with, but rhinos from Alaska, Texas, and Louisiana are worth. Yeah, exactly. Like Susan Collins will surprise you. You can't rely on Susan Collins, but did Susan Collins vote for Donald Trump's entire agenda? Yes. Did Rand Paul? No. I think Rand Paul is an underrated future primary target, whether people like him or not, because he gets in the way of success. If you're voting with the opposition, you could put any reason out there you want. And you analyze the track record, it's not really consistent. Same thing with Thomas Massey. John Waffles' message was retracted, so can't read that one. I don't know if he's going to send another or if he meant to send it, but we'll wait a couple minutes and then we'll wrap up the show. But it's going to be a close midterm. It was about Matt Gaetz Gaetz I don't think is going to run for political office. I think he'll stay in the media for the rest of his tenure. So, yes. All right. Would Mark Cuban be the most competitive nominee for Democrats? It's possible. I think Mark Cuban is a wild card. I don't think that he's he would either do very well or very poorly. I don't know if Democrats would be willing to nominate him, but I think Newsom is establishing himself as like the Biden stand-in. If Harris seems like she might go for it, or she's leaving the door open. That would be interesting, but I think Harris may not win a primary because when she actually faces opposition anywhere, she crumbles because she's so awful. Newsom will bully his way to the nomination because Democrats are weak. He's not going to be able to do that with Vance when the facts actually hit him, and he can be attacked on his record without saying, that's a Republican talking point. Well, it's true. That's the thing. You don't get to deflect on certain things, but he'll try. The sociopath energy, he'll get the nomination. He'll win the black voters in the South because he's like the most establishment. They'll see him as the most electable. That's just typically how they vote in the primary, and he will do well enough in enough states to contend, if not get the nomination. We'll see if AOC is going to be able to compete because she'll be the Bernie stand-in. Everybody else is just going to be swept away in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, we'll see. But, yeah, Newsom is the front runner. We understand that, and we'll see how far he goes. But we'll wrap it up, guys. I know it's been a long stream, but I will be live again. Hopefully next time we'll fix any possible video audio issue, which there really weren't that many of them, but I think that we could isolate the sound a bit more to sound a little bit more crisp and less like reverb. But I think it was a pretty good first stream. So like the stream before you go, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.